Eons ago, the crawling city of Basilfaced sprawled the abyss, where imps, daemons, and devils toiled away in the oppressive heat. This cruel, blasted land given as trophy, a gift to four beings of insurmountable power. In service to their god, Asmodeus, they prowl this land with predatory eyes, their baleful smiles a nauseating gallery of daggers. Somewhere, blood drips from their pearlescent fangs and boils upon the brimstone. From this gurgling puddle, a hand erupts, and another, gripping its claw into the red sand, emerging bastardkin for their god, born with insatiable hunger for war, for blood. Into chaos and killing, warring, stealing, and living, all for greed. But after all, greed is glory. Glory that be to Vinkelvor. So that's Forgotten Realms lore. Spooky stuff. I eat that up. But there's a reason you haven't heard of it. It doesn't carry over to the system and lore we have now. Goblinoids were a product of human blood spilled by demigods known as Barghests. These massive, hulking goblin-wolf hybrids. I'll admit it, that's badass. But chances are, if you found this video, you're a new wave player. Your main experience with Dungeons & Dragons, it's been through 5th edition. That's the case for me. I've been running and playing 5e for half a decade now. And that came with its warts and growing pains, but it wasn't all for naught. There's a magical little bag of tricks I've accumulated along the way. I picked and stole things that glimmered and made me smile. This video is about one of those things. Wargamers beware. This is why I think you should make your goblins cuter. Much like the goblins of years past, a troublesome history plagued their cousin race. The cultural significance of orcs were war-mongering savages. They pillaged and ransacked any village their cold, slimy eyes could catch. Along with one of those prizes, though, were the village's women. I'm not taking the story there. But you've got a good idea how a lot of half-orcs were running around for half a century of play. The original text describes orcs as having supreme genetics, superior strength, and indomitable hunger for power. They weren't intelligent, but they were strong. It's already not a good start here. So we give orcs this context, right? And then I say to you what has always been a canon truth, even now, orcs can breed with anything. Yeah, it's a massive yikes to hear out loud, isn't it? A solution to this that I enjoy is turning orc culture into a tribal, matriarchal system. Orc ancestry can be dominant, that's not the issue. The problem is tying the identity of an indigenous people to bone-crunching ruffians. Ignoring that makes another Western revisionist boo-boo. In the Way of the Orcs of Eberron, we workshop this idea. Instead, we portray orcs as thoughtful, spiritual, and diplomatic people, all the way down to their genetics proves that though your orc blood runs deep, it's something you will always have. And that's ancestry you can die proud of. Knowing your people are one with the world, a secular creed that left the earth richer for having them. Another cute bonus you get with this is that any orc man you make has a good chance of being a mama's boy. That's fun. There's a decade of work used to recontextualize D&D's more problematic lore. There'll be an article listed in the description if you want a deeper dive into the following subject. It's a super interesting read. It brings science and civil rights history into a game that could use it. You may ask why I make this argument for orc kind in a video about goblins, and that's because the argument isn't fully mine. Half-orcs have been playable races in the game since its conception. They get priority and major focus. If they don't get fixed first, it's an issue. This is where I reach into my bag of tricks and pull out a trinket for myself, because I don't see this kind of love for goblins. I get why. They've been nothing but a stat block all the way until now. We've gotten vague side content to play them by the way of Volo's Guide to Monsters, but other than that, it's a character your DM has been wanting to play for 3 years. Speaking of Volos, there are many branching offsprings of goblins that already exist. Most of the subraces are reliant on where a goblin hails from. Their geographical location has been home for centuries, thus they've adapted and evolved to live there. Ixalan goblins are more dexterous from centuries of swinging from vines, the Zendikar's arms are long and spindly for easy cliff climbing, and the Dankwood goblins, well, they're cute little frog-loving softies. That's closer to what I envisioned, though I wanted to run a goblin for a friend's campaign, and I found myself frustrated with the limited options I had. Sure, I could work with my DM on a distinct context for how goblins exist, but through some careful combing and with my back to the wall, I decided to make something for myself and the campaigns that I run. And I searched far and wide for any inspiration, content analogous to what I wanted my home game to represent. And I found that, in a way, in the Verdun from Acquisitions Incorporated. For those uninitiated, Acquisitions Incorporated is a campaign setting pinned by the crew behind Penny Arcade. It's a comical angle against the capitalization of a world full of adventurers hunting for coin. The Verdun were a reimagined race of goblins, a very abundant people that live within the setting. And little fun fact, rumor has it they were originally pitched as sexy goblins, which I'm sure some people are rooting for, and hey, power to you. The Verdun were a cursed race of goblinoids, forced to continuously mutate and grow. Their mutations kind of reminded me of the Simic hybrids from Ravnica. They sprawled out from the Underdark to walk amongst the commoners of Faerun. In the 15th century, they were held victim by an overgod known as That Which Endures. The being had stripped them of their collective memories and forced mutations in their gene pool. They're pretty smart cookies. Kind of like the orcs we described earlier, which is very good. I like the idea a lot. It fit in well with the Goblin Artificer I wanted to build for games I wanted to play. Also, at 5th level, the mutations give you a growth spurt. It's described as horrifically painful, but how cool would it be to be bullied by your fighter friend for being the short one in the party, and boom, overnight you are taller than him. The idea of a collective being a methodical and generous race piques my interest, and the way we've seen all gnomes of D&D is near to the exact same way I see goblins. If I may quote D&D Beyond, gnomes speak as if they can't get the thoughts out of their heads fast enough. And many gnomes are skilled engineers, alchemists, tinkerers, inventors. They're willing to make mistakes and laugh at themselves in the process of perfecting what they do, taking bold, sometimes foolhardy risks and dreaming large. Now that sparks a supernova in my noggin, because that's exactly what I'm envisioning. Wiping the grease from her cheek, the artificer slams her cannon down atop the creaky workstation. She heaves back in her chair, pleased with her month's work. A wisp of steam billows out from her coffee mug as the northern lights glimmer in the sky. It's another beautiful night in New Bismuth. And next, a rest well earned. Gnomes have had the spotlight for just a little too long. It's time to make some room for the green guys. And as I peel away the layers here, the answer might really be that simple. A studious race of people who live earnestly by their tinkering design, geniuses of clockwork, hell-bent on making the city safer. Oh, and that the counters are lower, obviously.